Yo soy Vivian Carrasco, and I would love to welcome you. Thanks for allowing me back in your ear, sharing with me your most valuable resource, which is your time, in such a intimate platform where it's just you and I having a little chat. So thanks for being with me today. Within You is a podcast that explores the unknown, that really shaky place when you're trying to find your footing as you're moving from what's now and what you are looking to do next, maybe figuring out what direction you want to go. I like to call this the liminal space because it's a little bit dark and you take those steps based on faith and belief and trust, one step at a time in that little fog of our lives that just unfolds as we walk. Yo soy Vivian Carrasco. I like to call myself a wisdom teacher and a mindset mentor, and it is my honor to be your transformational guide. I'm based in Funky Town, which is Fort Worth, Texas. Yay, Fort Worth. So Within You as a podcast really focuses on the intersection of our interior life, what's happening inside of us, and that creative expression of our voice, of our vocation, of whatever it is that we are verbing through. I love to say that we verb through our nouns. This is a complement to my online learning community within university. And so if you are not familiar with that offering, I invite you to visit it at www.withinuniversity.com. And today, because we move through journeys of discovery every season, this is a very special season for me because I am actually recording this on the eve of our new moon and also the Lunar New Year. This is a time where maybe you might have slipped on a goal that you set if it was a New Year's resolution, or you might be revisiting things that you've intended to do that you might not have followed through on. I know that I used to be very, very, very hard on myself. I traveled through life thinking that if I flogged myself with sticks and whips, not literally, but with words, and like shaming and hating myself, that I would be better. And it's interesting, in this half of my life, if I live to be 100, then it's almost half of my life. I have actually realized through experience that being a bit more compassionate to myself has really made the most significant difference. And it is supported by a ton of research. Being self-compassionate improves almost every facet of your life. It improves resilience. I actually have notes, so I should be looking at the notes to see where it does in the research. But the importance of self-compassion has come up. One of the things that I've done I've invested a significant amount of time in the last couple of years is on bringing my book to the public. So I'm crossing my fingers here, but it is in the final stages of final versions and then edits, and hopefully soon we'll be at a point where we are doing layout and actually publishing so that it can get into your hands. When I had initially started this effort years ago, I would hear folks say or write or share that the process of writing the book actually changed them more than having the book done. And I am experiencing that right now. It's become very clear to me that there are 4 very distinct facets of the principles that I believe in, and these are interwoven in everything that I teach, and each experience that myself and my community move through as we go through our own seasons. And the first of those is our breath. We were not taught how to breathe, and breathing and the way that we breathe is so important to the way that we live. It's something that I actually focused on my breath before I started this podcast. I bring attention to the breath before I begin a sacred circle or when we come together in community. My breath, our breath, the way that we breathe is one of the 4 facets that I weave into everything that I do. The second most important, is this topic, and that is self-compassion. Self-compassion, increasing, cultivating, recognizing that you can be compassionate to yourself, with yourself, is one of those things that changes everything for you. without anything on the outside having to be different. The main reason that compassion or self-compassion made such an impact on me is that I had to give myself compassion, kindness, care. I had to learn to allow me to give that to myself in order for me to receive it more from others. At some point in our lives, all of us are looking at our relationships and asking ourselves, can I deepen this? Can I change this? Can I shift that? And unfortunately, for most of us, I know me, raising my hand here, I looked out to make a difference in my relationships. I pointed fingers at other people. I was very judgmental. And as judgmental as I was about them, I was 10 times harsher on myself. And in my experience, nothing really shifted for me until I could turn that attention inward, until I could reflect it back onto myself and begin to give myself the things that I was asking other people for. Begin to allow myself to receive compassion from me. It increased my capacity to receive love and receive compassion and accept other things from other people. So before I had my near-death experience, that was the one thing that instead of pointing fingers and asking someone to change, writing a prescription, asking the doctor to write a prescription for someone that wasn't in the medical room, and me really taking responsibility for me doing that for myself was the primary thing. It was the pivot. That and carving out some silence, some space for me to reset, to, if this language resonates with you, to meditate, to pray, to listen to what it was that I needed for myself. That was the foundation of everything changing for me. And when I had my near-death experience, when I was hit by that car as I was physically crossing the street that evening in downtown Fort Worth, I also experienced the power of love. Because one of the things that happened is that, and words do not explain this in the truth of what actually happened in my experience, but it felt like a ticker tape. Like I went through an entire movie. I was able to re-experience every loving moment that I had ever had in my life. And it generated such power. It felt like that love allowed pain, suffering, discomfort, anything that was negative that I was holding on to in my body to just release itself, to let itself go. And then I expanded into bliss. I was not in the body anymore, and I could not, Mother Teresa says we are tiny pencils in the hand of God. That's what I believe when we are in our bodies. That is our one opportunity. That's why creativity and making and creating is so important, because this is our time to do that. This is our time to move air through, like right now, I'm moving air through my lungs to create this sound, to then make words and to have conversation so that you and I have this shared meaning, whether it's on paper, through songs, through books and words and art and dance. I mean, there are so many ways to express yourself. Love, kindness, self-compassion is more powerful than fear. And that's what I learned as I left my body and then came back to it. This is my one chance to make. This is my one chance to create in this life while I'm living in this body. And oh, what a life. And that I don't have to be afraid. I remember when Love Being Human as a message was gifted to me as an inspiration in October of 2013. I tried to share it. And I remember at one point being, I guess, distraught, just sort of giving up and saying, I'm too afraid. I can't do this. And I was talking to God, if you release me from this fear that is holding me back, then I will do this for you. Otherwise, you got to find somebody else to do it, because it can't be me. And after being hit by that car, I didn't have that fear anymore. Not like I did before. It really did release me. And I believe that part of that process was because love was so powerful. It sort of coated the fear. So in the first half of my life, I was super mean to myself. I was really judgmental. I was super hard on myself, critical, anxious. I remember that I would not fall asleep until I was so tired that I knew that I would just hit the bed and just immediately go to sleep, because I did not want to hear the voices in my head that would tell me I didn't do this right or I could have done this better. I just didn't want to hear it. And so as I was transitioning from that dark period in my life into the way that I live my life now, I was a little afraid of the difference between that motivated, hard-charging, super productive, just focused on like getting somewhere, how losing that effort and moving more with my flow, being more self-compassionate, more accepting of things, if that would make me lose my motivation, if it would keep me from making achievements in my life, if it would take away my sense of significance. And what I found personally for myself is that it has not. It's just made the way that I travel so much easier. It's like moving from, being on a rocky road in a car without shocks and no power steering to just being on this really smooth ride. I'm still getting where I want to go. I'm still having the experiences I want to have, but the ride there is so much better. The process to get the progress towards that is so much better. So I want to invite you to consider self-compassion in your life, because I've seen the difference it's made for me. And the other reason I keep coming back to this topic of self-compassion is because I recognize that in that dark period when I was asking for love, the truth of love, honestly, because I thought I must have gotten this wrong. Like the movies, the Bible, poets, they're not writing about the same thing that I'm experiencing. So I must be missing something. And in that exploration over a couple of years of what is the truth of love, I found, and again, I'm going to go back to what I said before, that I had to give myself more love in order for me to be able to receive it from others. I had to give myself love in order to be able to receive more love from others. So I translated that couple of years of research into a journal that I shared with a loved one, because I needed to create it for someone else in order for me to be able to finish it, because I couldn't do it from just myself. And then after that, I actually transitioned it or recreated it, reformatted it into a 40-day email experience that you are welcome to take even to this day, even though it's like 6 years old. If you visit www.viviancarrasco.com/start-here, you'll have the opportunity to choose from 3 different learning journeys that I've created, because we change over time, drip by drip, day by day. And this experience actually turned into what I call the 40-day promise. You make a promise to yourself, and over the course of 40 days, you journey through self-love and the truth of it, loving yourself and then loving others. And what I'd recommend if you are interested in experiencing that is that you decide ahead of time the time of the day that you're going to open that email and the place, and you create some form of sacred ritual, some significant ceremonial space that holds that love and that intention for you. It could be as simple as a few minutes of silence after your first cup of coffee and before you begin your day, or it could be one of the last things that you do in the day, a short couple of sentences that you reflect on as you're falling asleep, that you let sit and simmer in your self-conscious, because it's that gentle. It's just a few sentences every day that invite you to reconsider the promise of love and how we give it to ourselves. There's a study by Stephen Rogelberg, who actually studied senior executives at the end of a leadership development program. And what he found is that those that wrote letters to themselves that were more compassionate actually were less stressed, more motivating as a leader, and they performed better at work. So that's just one example of the myriad of research out there that shows that self-compassion can actually drive you harder, help you lead other people better than, the sticks that you might be hitting yourself with your self-talk. Love is more powerful than fear. I experienced that in my own life. And the metaphor that I love going back to, because I can sense this experience in my body, is the difference between being at the shore and walking out to the ocean, despite what is happening with the waves. Like literally just forcing your way to whatever point you're going to, swallowing water, getting salt water in your mouth, getting it in your eyes, having your hair get in your face, like being pushed around. And with its sheer force and, stubbornness, you're going to get to that point. And yes, you will. I did. I achieved all the goals I set for myself, but I got there tired. I got there beat up a little bit, you know? And the difference between then and now is that I wait until the wave comes in and I let it take me out. And then I pause and I let it come in and let it take me out. And so I'm going more with the flow of my own energy, of my own cycle. And, you know, like I know now when I'm most productive, both during the day, during the week, during the month. I sense those changes in myself and I align with them. And I get more done in less time. And it's not as hard. Test it for yourself. See if it works for you. There is a definition of self-compassion as viewing our suffering. And I don't like the word suffering. I prefer the word discomfort. Because anytime that we're learning something, we're moving out of our comfort zone into this discomfort zone. And then once we pass that discomfort zone, we're in overwhelm. So primary, if you are, and I know you are because you're listening to this, you are continuously making yourself better. You're continuously learning, taking in new information. You are about personal development, right? We're in spiritual growth because you and I are friends because we're here together. So it doesn't have to be suffering like painful trauma. This is not what I'm trying to touch at all. This is just when you're learning something new and something is at your edge of growth. You move into some discomfort. If you can treat yourself with understanding and acceptance during that time of discomfort, that is self-compassion. Part of the research that I was mentioning earlier is that self-compassion deepens our emotional resilience, our sense of self-worth. It lessens depression and shame. It is like a magic pill. So it is important that we continue to revisit being compassionate to ourselves. Now, I want to share 2 practical tools with you that might help you to develop your self-compassion. The first is to observe your self-talk. Listen to the narrator of your life. What is the inner monologue going on in the scenes of your movie? My hunch is it's not something that you would say to your best friend if they were going through a hard time or if they were struggling with something. That's my hunch. It's not something that you would say to someone that you love when you see them going through a hard time. You might say to them things like, it's going to be okay. You tried your best. Instead of, some of the meaner things that you might be saying. Audit your self-talk. Note it. And if it's not something that you would say to your best friend or to someone that you love, then ask yourself, how can I be on my own side here? How can I be a friend to myself? That is something that I was never really taught in school or in my experiences growing up. I don't know where I was supposed to pick that up from. Typically, girls aren't really nice to each other, so it wasn't there. I also sense that this is something that, if we learned earlier, it'd improve our lives and the lives of everyone around us so much more. Because love is so much more powerful than fear. Test it. Try it. Become your own friend. Be on your own side. For me, it didn't stop me from achieving successes, from making significant milestones, from being motivated. It really didn't. Doesn't mean you're going to end up sitting on the couch for years, vegging out on, TV. Maybe days if you need it, but not years. Just because you're being nice to yourself. You don't have to flog yourself into action because you'll get more done. You'll motivate more people if you do it without being self-critical. So that's my first practical tool for you. Listen to the narrator of your life and decide if you want to be better about your own self-talk. The second one, and this one is super, super interesting. In my work, I have found that caretakers, people that are very, very giving people, find it hard to give to themselves. And I was like this in my early years too. I would give to exhaustion for everyone else, but I just couldn't do the same thing for myself. There is a beautiful guided meditation if you visit Dr. Christine Neff's website, and I'll add it to the show notes. If you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this, it should be in the notes below. And if it's not, visit www.viviancarrasco.com/podcasts and find it there. But you can also Google Christine Neff resources, and she has a couple of guided meditations. One of them is giving and receiving self-compassion. There's a line in that meditation that I found works magic with people who find it hard to give themselves compassion. And it is sort of looking at the yin and yang of compassion. Like I said earlier, I had to receive more compassion from myself in order to receive it from other people. Like, this will improve everyone's capacity at love. It's not going to be selfish. It's not going to take anything away from anyone else. And the doorway to this is, and you'll hear it as Christine Neff guides you through this meditation, but she says, one for you and one for me. Love for you and love for me. Not in those exact words, but the point is, if I have to give you love, or if I have to send an intention of care to you first in order to be able to give myself one, then okay, that's a start. It is the rhythm of life. Can you imagine exhaling without the inhale? Can you imagine having a sunrise without a sunset? Can you imagine a full moon without a new moon? Darkness without light? Receive compassion, receive care, receive love. If you're in a place where you feel safe and you're not driving, maybe right now, put your hand over your heart and give yourself that caring touch, that loving touch. Receive. I had to learn the hard way that I had to learn to receive love from myself in order to let other people love me even deeper. So, one for you and one for me. In October of 2020, I was also lucky enough to take an 8-week mindful self-compassion program that was developed by Dr. Christine Neff and Dr. Chris Gromer, who have really become the leading experts in self-compassion. And I invite you, if you're looking for a resource, that might be an experience that would add value to you. But if in this very moment you need support, you can text HOME, HOME, to 741741, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in the United States and Canada, for crisis counseling. Free crisis counseling. We are on the edge of an entire year of a global pandemic, and for many of us, we're hitting this wall where the resilience that we've been able to express, the fortitude, the I've got this, that energy might be running out, and you might be needing to reset, might be needing to create more space. And so if you need support, text HOME to 741741 for crisis counseling. If you'd like to join a community where you can learn and grow, you are welcome. You are warmly welcomed to join my community at Within University. We are actually taking a learning journey this season that will begin February the 17th and run through April the 3rd. I intentionally aligned that with Lent, as the Catholic tradition of Lent, because of the Lunar New Year, because of astrology, because those 40 days of self-reflection have always been a very important part of my personal life, that I wanted to share that with my community. Regardless of when you're listening to this, whether it's before, after, or even during this season of our live experience, if this is something that you would like support in, verbing through a noun, becoming more self-compassionate, learning tools for self-reflection, I would be honored to journey with you. Just send me an email at vivian@viviancarrasco.com. This episode is being published on February 14th, which is typically when the United States celebrates Valentine's Day. And that's probably one of the reasons why I felt so strongly about sharing this idea again, of learning to be on our own side. Because there is so much attention being drawn to how much love we give, when in reality, based on my experience, the love that I craved from other people wasn't even possible until I gave it to myself. So, I hope you have fun with one of these 2 exercises. And in closing, if you just want to hear from me in your inbox the next time I have a learning journey, then I would invite you to find a spot on my website that I ask you for your name and email. It should be at the end of every blog or podcast. There are typically buttons that say yes, please. And I added those words, yes and please, intentionally. Yes, because you're making a choice. That's what we're doing in life, is navigating what direction we're going in. So I put yes so that you can start with that promise, with that micro commitment to yourself, And then please, because it is a prayer, not to me, but it's for yourself. It is an intention that you're setting that aligns with that choice, with that commitment to build your inner skills, to decide to turn your attention inward and to deepen your experience with yourself. Because the noise of the world can distract us from so much. But like I said, the research on self-compassion is through the roof on how much impact it makes in so many areas of our life. So if you don't trust me and you don't trust the research, which is totally fine, begin to experiment, be curious, and test it. See how it works in your own life. I'd love to hear how your effort is. If you want to reach out and ask questions, send me an email at vivian@viviancarrasco.com. But like I said, if you'd like me in your inbox, please find a spot on the website that has a button that says yes, please, and asks you for your name and email, and I will be in touch. Typically about once a quarter, so it's not a lot. Maybe if I'm really generating a lot of juice, once a month. Regardless if you come closer to me or if you decide to join the community within university, I firmly believe that we change in community. So whatever you do, just don't do it alone. Find a friend, someone you trust, someone you feel connected with that can help you co-create, because we learn together. It has been my joy, my absolute pleasure to be with you today. And I guess I just want to re-share what love being human is, because it is the principle to everything I do and within you, both the podcast and the community. Love is about self-discovery. It is experiential knowledge, because I believe we don't know ourselves. We don't know who we are. We often don't know what we're becoming or what we want. It's very simple self-awareness. The steps to love are obviously kindness and self-compassion, which is why I'm talking about it today. Being is an embodied practice that is particular to you and your season. We build in embodied practices into our learning journeys because it is how humans change. It is how we learn. And then finally, human, love being human. This is where you find something that expresses your creativity, that mirrors where you are, as a way to move all of this through you. Human is also about just recognizing those defaults to the human body, you recognizing it for yourself. And I love to tell the story of when the boys were little, my grown men, when they were tiny, so tiny that I had to get down on one knee to sort of be at their eye level, and they were screaming or, something was happening with them. I remember looking at them and silently, without words, just sort of asking myself, is he hungry? Is he tired? Does he need a hug? We're human. Maybe those questions would be great questions to ask yourself to start with. Where are you in your humanity? Because I've found that when I'm teaching beginning meditators, very, very beginning meditators, how to reset, how to pause, how to experience silence, so very often they fall asleep because they just don't realize how tired they are. Thank you for joining me on Within You, the podcast. I wish you peace in all ways.